Hey there everyone, Quiet Engine here, and I'd like to start on that big beautiful grill as per usual. This video wasn't exactly planned, which is why it's kind of like off the cuff like all my videos are. This is kind of like a redemption run, because Junkyard Hack left a comment in my earlier video where I announced something that I'd kind of had it planned that I was going to make it like, oh, such bad news, and then it was going to be a big reveal, like, ha, gotcha, look, the engine's back. And because of some stuff that was happening, like behind the scenes and everything, like my family were... Some people say if you're lucky to have a good supportive family, and I do. I have a supportive family in one way, but it comes at the cost of being unsupportive in other ways. And as a result of that, I just kind of didn't have that energy to really pay off what I was trying to set up. So I do apologize for making people worry, because this is my hobby. The important thing to remember is that when we work on these kind of cars, we love them because somebody else didn't. That's my motto when it comes to this. Like this car was in no condition. I'll freely admit it. The floor, all the underneath, get a little like sneaky peeky here. All under here is probably about as stable as gingerbread. You can see there, like there's the removed. There's where the drive shaft's being held up. Specialist equipment and everything. No one was going to buy this car and decide, oh yeah, I'm going to restore this. And at most, if they bought it for a parts car, they'd have found out how worn out most of the parts are, like the engine, and they wouldn't have bothered. So I've given this car a new lease that it never would have had before. And just sometimes you just got to move at your own pace. Don't get caught up in thinking that you need to get somewhere quickly. It's not getting anywhere quickly. You don't have to. And I sometimes need to remind that about myself. And I think that's a message that most of us need to have. This part here, this is the key element. I mean, you can see Power Nations, you can go to other channels like that and watch as they take a car that's all junky and they go into their big expensive workshop and they restore it and they bring it and they've turned like a hearse into a drag car and things like that. We're just savoring this, It's like making wine. Yes, you enjoy the results at the end, but you've got to make sure you take the time along the way. Sorry about the wind. I really need to get one of them microphones. That's kind of the other reason why I've not been doing it yet, because it's kind of ironic, the quiet engine, quiet videos, but I will be getting at that at some point in the future. So, as you can see here, my plan for today, once I've finished filming, is I'm going to wrap up the engine, because as I found out when I put the brake master cylinder on, those things rust. So I've actually had to take that, would you believe I've had to paint the master cylinder. I had to take it upstairs, put some rust remover on it, and it was brand new. It was a brand new set, but because of the climate and everything, you've got to apply it. It's why I haven't put the calipers on, because the calipers aren't painted. I'll need to get those painted at some point. And as, just a casual reminder to people that this is a front disc brake conversion, which I did myself. I'm still very proud of. That wheel in particular, I'm not 100% proud of, because I couldn't quite get the bearing. Well, the bearing and everything, all the mechanical is fine. I just can't get the actual cap on properly. But yes, the engine is back. The engine has been re-sleeved. My dad says, oh, it doesn't look like there's been anything done with it. But that's kind of the point, is that if something's been done right, you can't tell that anything's been done at all. The only thing I'm a bit disappointed with is that it's still covered in all the grease and grime and muck and everything that it was before, which means I've then got to go and do that, hence why I need to wrap everything up, because I won't be doing that immediately, because I need to be able to afford a degreaser. Once I get degreaser, I can use that to clean everything off, and then I'll also jet wash it, because again, you can jet wash something as long as you've got plenty of that. That was something that I found out, and I'm just going to throw it out there. If you're watching this, maybe you already know, but if you're ever working on an old car, you can jet wash the parts. Just for God's sake, please make sure that everything is dry, and you put plenty of WD-40 or any kind of like water dispersal removal agent to make sure that it stays covered. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's still covered in WD-40. Maybe it's still oily because that's how they've been preserving it. but it's not been wrapped in anything, and I want to get that done just to make sure that, because of the elements, we've had really, really nice dry weather lately. I want to make sure that the engine doesn't get screwed over any further. But I have new bearings. The crankshaft has been turned 1/1000th of an inch under to get rid of all the worst deterioration and everything. I've been given bearings that will fit and take everything into consideration. That was a part that I was really, really unsure about. If you're unsure, ask the shop that's working on your engine, because that's the most important thing. There are some people out there that will do it. I wasn't sure, and I have dyscalculia, which means that I struggle with numbers, so imagine what that's like. I didn't want to take the risk. I paid a little bit extra, it was only a tiny little bit more, but I got the bearings, so that will now fit the crankshaft with its new tolerances. Everything else has been done. Camshaft, I've got that ready, new lifters, I've got everything. The funny thing is that I had everything bought for the engine before the engine got to this stage, so I've got everything. I've got gaskets, I've got rebuild kits, I've got new lifters, new cams, new oil filters, new oil pump, because the trouble is that because of how badly deteriorated this engine was, I don't know what screwed up, so I'm crossing everything out as a process of elimination of, well, the less parts that are worn and torn and run down and knackered, I can eliminate those before we even start. That's my logic. And I've rebuilt the generator, and I've rebuilt the starter, and I'm very, very proud of those, because people say, one of the little comments that I got when I first started doing these was, you won't know what you're doing, even though I did electronics in secondary/high school. It's called secondary school in the UK, it's called high school in the States, but that's what I did. So I did electronics. I was told, oh, you won't know what you're doing. So I rebuilt them. The other thing I want to show, one second, going to do a quick cut here, is over here on this side. Yes, swapped over sides now. Once again, that big beautiful girl. God, I love it. I love her. You know, people make all kinds of comments about it and everything. I love that horse collar girl. I just think that's beautiful. I fell in love with it when I was 11 years old when I first saw one of these cars. To actually own one fills me with joy. That's the little part that I keep coming back to. Whenever I feel demotivated, that's the part I come back to. Always find a part in the car that makes you just sit and look at it and think, this is why I bought it. This is the other part that I want to work on. Now, to give some people some example, the engine was like this, and this is the transmission. Bell housing, I managed to get it out. Had to drop the cross member. But quiet, I hear you ask, apart from who's that talking in the distance, that's just my neighbours, don't worry about it. But quiet, I hear you ask, why would you have to remove the entire transmission? Why not just take the bolts out? Well, there's an answer for that. Because it was very difficult to see under all of this. That is the bell housing with my transmission in it. Even after owning this for as long as I have, it still was like this because I couldn't get access to it because it was under the bell housing. Now, I had two ways of doing it. The floor's like gingerbread in there, so I could have cut through a service hatch, gotten through and underneath, but the trouble is that the bolts were underneath anyway. So I was like, ah, right, defeated. So the only thing I did was I went down and I just dropped the cross members. I just dropped the cross member and dropped the engine through the bottom. It was a pain in the ass, and all of the tubes and pipes that, you know, keep everything up, those were getting in the way, and I very nearly, like, just gave up and walked away. But it took me 3 days doing it by myself, but I managed to get everything sorted. So this was all like what the engine looked like. You can see, like, the level of, you know, like this is, none of this is staged, but there's a piece of where the original metal is. On focus. And you can sort of see the depth of what is cocooned, everything that's cocooned around this engine. Now what that's actually meant is some of the labels, like there's a little label badge on the side of the transmission that's still the original, and it's perfect. It's still got its red right on and everything. Apologies for the noise here. But you can see there as well, like that's where the starter was, and you can see that all of that. And of course, someone's alarm decides to go off. It's okay, they stopped it now. So yeah, that cocooning, as I keep nicknaming it, because what else do you call something that's as bad as that? That was over the entire engine. That was in the starter motor and the generator. That had all built up. Like, I pulled it out and it was just all decaying away. I don't know where it was stored, I don't know how it was stored, but any gap, all of the wind and dust and dirt just blew up in there. And that was through the entire thing. The engine itself, surprisingly, once everything off the outside was taken out, on the inside, I mean, like, there was still, like, as you've seen, there's still some patches of original yellow. You can see the original yellow, the yellow that I've painted on, and it was still there on the engine block to some degree. So it was oddly well cared for by the elements, but at the same time it was also abused by the elements, which, figure that one out, make it make sense. But that's when people say, like, oh, it can't be that difficult, like a lot of my friends have sort of said that to me, that's what I was starting with. So I had to unearth everything. I felt like Indiana Jones, unearthing the engine before I got started, and then making sure that, you know, like oil and dirt and dust and everything didn't fall in. If this thing had started off immediately, I can't imagine what a dust storm it would kick off. It would just be blowing all underneath and decaying and breaking away, and it maybe would have just made things 8 times worse. So when people say, why are you stripping everything down? This is why. Now, like I said, I know I've put some red and primer on the car. I will be taking that off at some point, the red. I think what I'm going to do is that when I finally get around to the day that I register it, I'm going to jet wash it all off and take it right back to patina and keep that for as long as possible, because I think the patina really did add something. Plus, I love the mix of newer parts. Those wheels won't be staying, by the way. I now know I got the wrong size wheels. They're too narrow. I mean, like, they're not too narrow. I can drive with them, but when you're dealing with the aspect of, you know, your brakes and your steering, I might want a bit more grip. Just throwing that one out there. Might want a little bit more sturdiness. So I will be getting some new wheels. The back I'll be getting new tyres for later on in the year. Maybe sometime in November, because again, it's money. I just don't have the means for it at the moment. But like I said, I can't even afford degreaser, you know, and that's like 10 quid. 10 quid, which is about equivalent to like about $12, $13. But I can't really get that at the moment. What chance do I have of getting tyres? But there is someone who can get tyres that will fit the original wheels, and I'm going to use the original wheels because I want to change the bolt pattern to make it a Ford bolt pattern front and back, just because then it's easy to find wheels in the future. This is already a front, like the front wheels are Ford bolt pattern, the rear wheels are Edsel bolt pattern, and I want to just sort of like unify it, so then that way if I want to rotate the tyres, it'll be a bit easier for me. But this is more like a redemption run, because I felt that I wanted to do something a little bit different. I put new cuts in, shock horror, but I just wanted to sort of say thank you. I do appreciate everything and everyone. I want to thank all the subscribers that I've gotten. I've gained like a few that I didn't even notice. Thank you, and hopefully my last video wasn't too much of a downer, but to all, this is something I wanted to say, to all you people that have been following along with the build, anyone in the future who finds this video, aren't you the lucky guys? Because everyone else has had to sit here and wait for nearly a year while this engine came back. You don't have to. If you start at the very, very beginning, you can come all the way to here, and you can just watch all the videos, and you've had this wonderful like quantum leap time travel experience. Yeah. You know, you don't have to deal with the wait. You can just go play me in the background while you're watching some of the videos on YouTube, if you can hear me, because again, I am the quiet engine. But yeah, this will be getting wrapped up. Let me put my teeth back in and try that one again. So WD-40 on the engine block, wrapped up. Probably not going to really work on it until September, just because I'll have a bit more freedom and I'll have a bit more space. Because I'll be able to move it to a place where there's a little bit more storage area for me to work on, because as you can see, that's all I've got at the moment. I've got this tiny little space here, but I also worry if, you know, making sure that everything's all safe and secure and wrapped up and properly and everything. So, yeah, that's basically it. Again, massive shout out once more to Junkyard Hack. I also want to shout out Dungeons and Doodles, because a lot of the members who are on that channel, they have shown me a lot of support in private and through DMs, and just sort of like, you know, hey, don't let things get to you. And you're right, things can get to you. But the one thing that doesn't get to me is my car. I might get angry at myself. I might get angry, like, freely admit, unfortunately, out of the 6 bolts that I've got, just 6 bolts that I've got for the crossmember, 3 of them snapped. So at some point, I'm going to have to swallow my pride and ask for some help in getting the bolts out in the that's still in the chassis, still under there, so I can get some new ones. I'll have to ask for help, but that's me, and I'm not mad at my car, because, like I said, this being a bit sentimental, my grandmother was happy that I had this car. My grandmother, bless her, her hands have touched that front of the grille and on the side bumper that's been put in storage, and she loved it because, yes, our cars weren't the same as this, but they still had chrome on, and she loved them and she admired them, and she was happy that I had this car. She always used to say, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? And I went, well, I'm going to work on it. And she said, what are you going to do with it when it's done? And I says, well, I'll keep it. And, you know, my mother did say, maybe if I wanted to rent it out for, like, you know, like weddings or parties or something like that. I mean, it's a 4-door. That's the thing that people don't look at. It's a 4-door. Now, that might not be as flashy as a 2-door. It might be not like a Plymouth Fury or anything like those, but it means that you've got the back seat for ease and access if anyone wants to get in and out. And I will be doing some customization with this. I've already customized it a little bit as is, but I want to do a few other things with it. I want to put a few more extra little bells and whistles on. Keeping it sort of relatively stock under the hood. A few little tweaks here and there that I've learned from a good friend called Spencer, not of the Tracy variety. But I want to make this work. And again, I just want to give a massive shout out to everyone that follows and supports. I don't think I'm going to hit 100 subscribers this year, but you know what? I'm just happy with what I've got, and I'm happy for all of you. So, compared to last video, there's a lot more enthusiasm in this quiet engine. Take care, every last one of you. If you like my channel, you know, obviously like, subscribe, hit the bell, do whatever you want, or just enjoy playing these videos in the background. If you play these videos in the background and just listen to my voice droning on, that helps me too. All take care, stay safe, take care, and all the very best to you and yours. And remember that we love these old cars because someone else didn't.